Hi, I'm Elizabeth. Welcome back to my series, my beginner bobbin lace series, Mastering the Basics. If you didn't see my first video, make sure and check that out. In this one, we're going to be building off of those skills of half stitch and whole stitch, and we're going to be learning torsion ground and starting on a diagonal. This one, we're going to bump it up from 6 pairs to 8 pairs, and we'll be using the same, I'm using the same Gutermann thread. You can use what you have. Again, it is linked in the description on Etsy, Go Imagine, and my website, sewingwithjoy.com. Torsion ground is really important because it's going to be basically the background of a lot of our lace going forward, especially when we're doing torsion lace. So this is a really good skill to get really mastered and feel very confident in before you move on to other things. Let's get started. For this one, we're going to be starting on the diagonal. So these little circles up here are the temporary pins. I'm going to start by putting 2 right up there at the top. And these pins we put in, we'll hang our bobbins from them initially, and then after we work just a little bit, we'll take them out. So getting them exactly in the middle doesn't matter. They're just a loose reference point. We have 1 hole on each. The way the torsion ground works is it's a half stitch, pin, half stitch. So cross, twist. Now we're going to pin in this very top of the actual pattern. And then we're going to close the pin by doing half stitch on the other side. Now that we've done that, we're going to take out both of these temporary pins and let the threads come down around that top pin. Now we're going to work down this right side. I'll put a temporary pin in the next hole. Get our next bobbin, and we're going to do exactly the same in the next hole. We're going to do cross, twist, come in between those two, and pin in the next hole, or the next dot coming down that diagonal. Cross, twist, close that pin, and I'll release the temporary pin. It's really helpful when you're doing any bobbin lace to make sure you're looking at the threads and not so much looking just at your bobbins, because the threads, looking at the threads, you're going to catch your mistakes a lot earlier than if you are looking at your bobbins. So we want to be making sure that our red threads are going to come all the way down this side, or whatever color you're using, or if you're all using the same. The pair that started up here on this side is working all the way down this diagonal, and the one that started over here is going to work all the way down this diagonal. Cross, twist, pin, cross, twist. And we can see that there's a twist on each of these, which is another thing we can check to make sure that we've done it right. Let's set up the last temporary pin on this side. The last bobbin on this side. Cross, twist. Starting on a diagonal seems kind of intimidating, but I find it actually easier in practice than starting on a straight edge. Now we're going to close the pin, cross, twist, and release that temporary pin. Now we're going to scoot all of these bobbins over to this side, and we're going to come down the left side now. Temporary pin. Next bobbin pair. And cross, twist. Pin, cross, twist. So now this orange one is going to come all the way down this side. release, put in the next one. Now here you have another option, or an option of either continuing to put these last 2 pins in, or you can work down this diagonal line right here. For this pattern, it is not going to make too much of a difference. Sometimes if you have a much wider pattern, it can just be a little bit easier to start with a little bit and get what you can done with a smaller number of bobbins before you add in more. But it really doesn't matter either way, it's up to personal preference. I'm going to show you adding all of them first. Well, actually, I want to do a purple and orange left. I think we should put the other orange on this next pin to keep things a little bit clearer for the next bit. This is a little bit too long, so I take a pin and I hold this loop up, twist it, and that winds some of the thread back up. Okay. Cross, twist, pin, cross, twist. Now we're going to come into this last one right here. Cross, twist, pin, cross, twist. This one's a little bit long. It's easiest to work your lace if all of your bobbins are about the same distance from your work. And it's also up to personal preference. There's kind of a happy medium between having them too close to the work and too far away. I find about 4 to 5 inches-ish good for working on a flat pillow like this. This one's just a little bit short, so I'll lengthen that kind of to match this. Okay, now we can release our last temporary pin. All of our pairs of bobbins are in, and we're ready to do the bulk of the work. These lines show you where the threads are going. So in order to work this stitch right here, we need to have the 2 above it done. So this is the only stitch that we can do right now, because for example this one we can't do because this one needs to be done first. And the ground is often used, it's like a kind of like the background of the lace, where all of your features are going to be in it, and this is kind of like the netting background. And it's going to be done the exact same way that we put these starter pins in. We do half stitch, cross, twist, pin in between, cross, twist. Now you can see that the thread that was coming from this side, they've crossed each other at that point where the pin is. And this one is going to work all the way down this diagonal, and this yellow is going to work all the way down this diagonal. The torsion is done on the diagonal. So now we're going to just keep working down the diagonal. You could go to the left first or to the right first. Both of these stitches up here are done, so I know that I can now do this next hole right there. Torsion ground is really important to practice because it is going to be in basically all of your torsion patterns as the foundation of your lace, and it's just a great skill to practice before moving into more complicated things. Now I'll do this last one. And you can see from the lines on here that coming into this one, we have this one from the side, and then this one that's just coming straight down the edge. Just going to do straight down like that. Now this one has traveled all the way down that diagonal. Now we have to move back up to this next one that's available to do. So you could keep working starting from the left and going down the diagonal to the right and do that all the way down like this. Or you could kind of go back and forth. We could work down to the left and then come here and work to the right and then left and right and left like that. I think it's good to practice doing it both ways because some patterns lend themselves better to some things or to some ways of, some orders of doing the stitches, and some are better a different way. So we're gonna kind of do a little bit of both. When you have elements, other elements in your lace, you won't be able to just work on this angle all the way down. You'll need to do a little bit of working this way and then working this way to get ready to do your design features. Come right back up here to the very top of our next stitches. You can see we've got the thread coming from this stitch up here and the one from over here. Most patterns that have torsion ground aren't going to have these lines. It will just be the dots without the lines. But for this first one, practicing torsion ground, I think it's very helpful to have those lines to show you the direction the threads are going, and also so that you can understand where your threads need to be coming from before you can work that stitch. Okay, I'm going to switch doing kind of back and forth so you can see what that looks like. So we'll go to the right. Find our next available stitch, which is always going to be the highest point. Going with whichever is your highest point is your next stitch, which is why we could do this stitch next or this stitch next. I'm going to keep going to the right for just a little bit. Just like that. So now we've worked down to basically where it's starting, like at the top on that diagonal. So those are the two different ways that, or I mean, I guess there's lots of different variations, but as long as you are doing the highest stitch, that is what's most important, and making sure that the two stitches that lead into it have already been done before you do it. Other than that, it is completely up to you how you go about working your lace. I'm going to keep working this lace. If you'd like to work along with me, you can, or I will put a time stamp so that you can skip to the end where I show you how we're going to finish this piece. Once you've worked a few inches, you can start reusing your pins from back here. You just want to make sure that you are leaving in all of the edge pins. So I like to kind of push them down just a little bit. I don't push them down all the way because then I find them kind of hard to get out. But I push them down just enough so it's easy for me to distinguish them from the others. Sometimes I'll push them down a little bit further as I'm working. Often I just don't think about it, so I'll just go back and do it later. So now all these pins are still standing, we're going to start recycling, which is where we take them from the back and then put them into where we are working. Just like that. This helps if you don't have enough pins to put in every hole. It's also a little bit quicker to just take from pins that are already facing the direction that you need them to be, instead of picking up pins from a thing over here where you kind of have to like turn around and make sure that you've got the head up, and it saves just a little bit of time, which putting in a lot of pins, so saving a tiny bit of time for each pin really does help. It's also exciting when you get to start taking out pins, because then you get to start seeing your lace a little bit better. It's hard to see it when it's covered in pins, but your lace will start peeking out now that you're taking pins out. You need to have a couple inches between the back of your pins and where you're working, so that when you are tensioning these, you're not messing up what you've already done back here. Torsion ground, there's not too much tensioning that needs to be done with, but with some design elements, there's a good bit more pulling on the bobbins to get the tension right. And so it's always a good practice to have a nice solid section of pins between where you're taking them out and where you're working your lace. starts to kind of rise up on the pins like that, I just push it down. You may have noticed that I'm not working down just a single diagonal and then moving on to the next one. The way that I personally like to work torsion ground is I'll start on the side, that top pin, and then the next top pin. Kind of do 2 diagonals at a time. So then instead of moving on to this one, it's the next and this first diagonal, I'll come back to the one that's first in the next diagonal because both of the stitches above it have already been worked, so it could be done. And then I'll go back up to the next one. So I'm always doing 2 stitches down this way, and then I move down to the next set of 2 stitches. 1, 2, and then up to the next one. I just find this easier instead of working all the way across and then all the way across again. I kind of stay in one spot of the lace for just a little bit longer, and I think it means less shuffling the bobbins around. I've also done where I've done like 3 at a time. It's completely personal preference. If that's confusing to you, don't even worry about it. Just go down the diagonal all the way and then start the next diagonal. Just want to give you some examples of different ways that you can approach the order of how you do the stitches with torsion ground. Something else that can help with this, with where the lace is kind of riding up the needles, is if you put something underneath the back of your pillow so that it's at a slight angle, and that kind of helps to keep the lace at the base of the needles. It's not super important, but it is nice to keep it down better, or down closer to the pattern. Just kind of bugs me a little bit when it starts to ride up. That's why I keep pushing it down. As we get to the end, we are going to work each of these last pinholes exactly the same way we've worked everything else. There is no difference. There's lots of different ways to finish lace bookmarks. In the last video, I showed you just how to tie off each bobbin and leave a couple inches for a fringe. And in this video, I'm going to show you another method. You can use the method from last video on this one if you prefer. You can use this one on that one. It does not matter. It is completely up to you and what you like and what you want to do. So each side has 4 pairs of bobbins. What I'm going to do is treat each one as if it's its own individual bobbin. So like this is now a pair of bobbins and this is a pair of bobbins. And I'm just going to do some whole stitch down. So cross, twist, cross, twist, cross, twist. I'm just going to go down a little bit. Kind of tricky to tension, so you just pull them to the sides and pull them tight. We're just going to go down a little ways. Trickier the tension the longer that you go without tensioning. Just gonna work that little bit right there. Lengthen each of these. Just probably would have been easier to do the braiding if I had lengthened them all before I did this. But lengthen all of those and just set them aside for now. We can do this other side. If you don't have a pattern that has a multiple of 8, you can also cloth stitch just 2 bobbins together and 2 bobbins together. This is just one way I like to do it when I have a pattern with a multiple of 8 individual bobbins, I guess. So a multiple of 4 pairs. Okay, let's check. We just did a cross last. So twist, twist, cross, twist. Tension things. Up, cross, twist. What precise number of whole stitches that you need to do, we're just making a little braid. Now we're going to take our scissors and we're just going to cut all of these threads off. And I'll just set to the side. Now I'm going to take these 2 ends and I am going to tie them. There's lots of options we could do here. We could tie a little knot at the end of each braid. We could tie them together. I think I'd like to tie them together and try to get the knot kind of at the base of the whole thing right there. So we're kind of coming down to a single point. That's just one way to do it. There's no right or wrong. Maybe some people would say that my way is wrong, but it's my way, so. Now ideally, you leave this on the pillow overnight. You don't have to. Traditional lace makers wouldn't have always had the time to just leave their lace because they needed to get more lace made. So it is certainly not a requirement to leave your lace overnight. If you do, you can still take out all of these central pins and just leave the ones along the outside edge. I am not going to leave it overnight because I want to show you what it looks like. I'm going to start to see how, because I used a whole bunch of different colors, you can see how the threads work in torsion ground, where one pair moves all the way down, and then when it hits the edge, it turns around. It goes down the length of the lace for one space between pins, and then goes back the other direction. That's how your threads should be moving in torsion ground. And that reflects the lines that we have on this pattern. And it's helpful to kind of hold the lace down as you pull up so that you're not distorting the work that you've done. If you want a tighter edge, you can always do an extra twist on this side. I kind of like this more open look. For this, we don't have really a foot side on either side, which is a straight and stronger edge that's on lace, usually with some passive going down it. But for this little practice piece, the one twist is fine, I think. So there's our completed lace. I think it looks pretty cool. It's really, really great to practice this torsion ground, and it will help you with every pattern that you do moving forward. Here's the completed lace. Okay, thank you so much for watching my video about torsion ground. I hope that you feel well practiced in torsion ground and confident in that skill. Let me know in the comments how it went and how you are enjoying bobbin lace. And let's meet back in our next video on how to do, I think diamonds is up next. So that will be really fun. See you there. Bye.